this is where the comparison came in. So when Mark Overmars comes in 2000, you remember during the dark ages, Overmars was the big signing of that summer in 2000.
Yes.
And because of the outgoing, I know Frances isn't here, but I think he feels me saying Luis Figo's name. So I mean, I can feel his.
Yeah, that was the Figo year. Yeah,
right. I can.
Yeah, so basically, they took the Figo money and dumped it into Overmars and a handful of other guys.
But I think
Overmars was a headliner.
Right. And the difference is the expectations were Overmars because of the money that was spent for him, that he had to do this thing, that he had to be the guy. He had to be the savior. Yeah. And for Memphis, that's not the case. Coming on a free, even though it's a moment where you need to win, because Barca always needs to win, coming on a free transfer in the way that he is, last year he had 22 goals and 12 assists in 40 matches on the season. Yeah. Griezmann, meanwhile, in 51 matches, so 11 more matches, had 20 goals and 12 assists. So the question for you is, what is the numerical expectation of Memphis this year, knowing that he's probably going to take a little bit of a hit in terms of his goal and assist production, because we're assuming we're going to get to Messi next. He's next, but assuming Messi is returning, then Memphis's production is obviously going to take a little bit of a hit.
Right. So, yeah, assuming he's not going to see the pitch as much as he did in Lyon. I mean, it's really difficult to kind of put numbers on it, but just to kind of ballpark it, I mean, I would say that, I mean, I'm picking numbers, but I think these might be reasonable. I mean, if you could say sort of 15, sort of 13 to 15 and sort of 7 or 8 assists, given the way that he plays, and assuming now, if he is really purely a substitute, then that estimate is too high. But if he is actually going to get some starts, whether through injury and also just through kind of squad rotation and trying to save some legs and things like that, I mean, ability-wise, I mean, he's, like we've talked about before, he's worked with Koeman before. He knows sort of I don't even know if it's the kind of the Barca way, or at least like kind of the Dutch mentality, and Koeman in particular, he knows sort of what his role would be expected to be. Now, obviously, like you said, we're going to talk about Messi, that sort of, because his role with Lyon, well, I don't know if it's purely kind of the Messi role. We talked about he's kind of had a little bit of a free role, and he's allowed to flow a little bit more around the field. Whereas, I mean, I think given what Barca have, again, sort of asterisk, assuming Messi, he's best on the left, kind of cutting in onto his right, and he will be very good at that. And so, I mean, I do think he'll get goals and get assists. So, I mean, assuming a reasonable amount of playing time, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if he got right around a dozen goals or even topped it a little bit. And I mean, maybe I'll adjust the assist number down to maybe 6 or 7, but around there. I mean, I'd say about 13 and 7, let's say.
I'm wondering what their best front three is going to look like. As we said, we're assuming Ansu Fati will be able to play, and Aguero was one player. When I say too many forwards, Aguero is also there in the mix. And I know the club and everyone wants the club to be pushing for a number 9, but that's physically impossible to happen. And I think either way, a number 9 is still going to be the thing that's missing, where because Memphis, as we said, I think a worry that he doesn't add width isn't true. So the more I looked at it, even with the Netherlands, because he starts out so far wide, he's not Neymar, obviously, but I think there is an idea that if he is willing to run, which is something he didn't do in his career, which is early, but it's something he does now. If he's willing to run and fight for an entire game, you could certainly see him starting on the left and coming out. I think his best role in that, even last season for Lyon, he started 100% of the matches he played in for Lyon last season. He is a starting player, and he does not do well off the bench. And that's something that's going to have to be considered. Yeah. So the more I'm breaking this down and saying,
even vocally said that, he's even said that he kind of mentally, I don't know if it's malicious, but I think he's kind of said that he mentally sort of checks out a little bit when he's not in the starting 11. Like, he finds it difficult to sort of engage with the game and lock into the game when he's not starting it.
And obviously that's a negative because that's not an excuse at the biggest club when you're competing for spots with Messi and Griezmann and the like. But going back to that thing, that point that Ansu Fati, again, the question mark becomes his health. I think Aguero, no matter what, is a substitute coming off the bench. But Griezmann, I think will continue to be the question mark, the key here, along with Ansu Fati's health. That if you told me that Barcelona's, if they play, let's say next year they play a 4-3-3, because even with the 3-5-2, there's just so many forwards. Unless Levon, and I want to give credit to Charlie Barca as well, unless their dream comes true and Griezmann plays as an attacking midfielder, I don't see how that 3-5-2 gets enough of the guys on the field who are going to be waiting to come on the field with Ansu Fati back. And so I could see Ronald Koeman going with a 4-3-3 this season. It could be December. And if you told me that the best starting front three is Depay on the left, Ansu Fati in the middle, and Messi on the right, that would not be crazy to me because of.
I don't think that's crazy.
And the reason I say that is because it's Griezmann and Messi still occupy the same parts of the field. And as much as Depay does have a free role, I worry about that on the counterattack. And I worry about that when it comes, it seems to me that's a direct correlation to the fact that De Jong and Pedri, if Depay is not going to, let's say if he's going to do the same amount of ball pressures that Messi does, if he's going to, it's not even about effort. It's just about his positioning, as I talk about the boring stuff about rest defense. When Barca lose the ball, is if Depay and Messi are in spots that aren't prepared to win the ball right back and
way out of the way,
right, then it's going to put so much onus on Pedri and De Jong once more. And then I can see us complaining about Busquets. I can see us complaining that why isn't Ricky Puig playing? Well, Ricky Puig is not playing because Memphis and Messi together aren't necessarily in the right. It's not a wrong thing that they're doing. They're creating offense, or creating shots, or creating chances. But Puig can't possibly be expected because of the positions he takes up offensively on the field, which is why you put him on the field, because of all the good things he does. And yeah, he can get stuck in a tackle, but we're talking about the moment that Barcelona take that shot and give the ball away, or the moment that shot is blocked, or the moment that Fati or Messi or Memphiss lose the ball and it's coming the other way, right? So the fears I had from last season, I'm a little nervous that defensively, Memphiss doesn't really rectify those in a way that Griezmann might, because Griezmann.
I don't think he does. I don't think he does, and for that reason, I'm a little bit partial. So I don't think it's crazy when you say that the best front three could be Memphiss, Ansu Fati, and Leo on the right. But the one thing is, and I think we talked about with Griezmann, he's pretty tireless. You know, like he left Diego Simeone's orbit, but he still has that kind of tireless workhorse mentality. And I think he falls into a weird category of player, I think, where in a weird way, now kind of stay with me for a second, it's a little bit of almost like the Beckham thing, where David Beckham, the whatever it was, the brand and the aura of David Beckham, I think colored a lot of non-close observers' views of what he was or how he was as a player. But anything you ever read about him from coaches and teammates and things like that, is this dude was tireless. Like, he would practice, he would show up early, he would leave late. He loved the game, and he was there to do the thing. He was a football player. All of this kind of like the celebrity and the glitz and glamour sort of sprung up around him. And I feel like there's a little bit of, you know, with Griezmann, that he's not Beckham, but I think there's a little bit of, you know, he puts out a documentary, you know, what is it, like the Making a Legend or something like that, you know? And so I think it's kind of easy to sort of paint him as sort of an overly arrogant, just completely full of himself, you know, sort of almost like an entitled superstar type. But he works like crazy. And for that reason, I do think he might need to have a place in the front three, which is where things get complicated. So I don't know. So that's why I kind of see if you want to make him an attacking midfielder, I don't know if that works, but otherwise you end up with the juggling of, if you have him up front, if Messi's there, obviously you have Messi up front, and then you have one spot for Ansu Fati, Memphiss, and I guess Aguero is just sort of a floating substitute.
Yeah.
Now, the only problem that I have with that is I wouldn't want to. I think in an ideal scenario, if everyone is healthy and kind of firing on all cylinders, I think Ansu Fati, Messi, and Griezmann, or kind of Ansu, Griezmann, Messi, but some combination of Ansu and Griezmann up front, with Messi kind of having his free role, I think is the ideal scenario. And in that sense, Memphiss is something of an ideal substitute for them, because he's had his low grade version of the Messi role in the past. So while he's, when I say the Messi role, he's not Messi, but he can at least sort of comprehend what it is that the responsibilities of that role are. And he can also come in on the left. So he's a really good sort of a versatile substitute that can do different things. And he does rack up assists, so he can create goals for other people. So he's not purely just a single-minded goal scorer. And then I think that just kind of leaves Aguero as your pure kind of number 9 substitute, like the guy you put in. Yeah. Now, he's also good in more nuanced ways, but he's a goal scorer. He's in the box and he knows how to put the thing in the net. And so actually, like as I kind of think about it, I mean, I think the ideal scenario is the trio that was last season's presumed front three, with Memphiss kind of spelling each of them as needed. And the good thing is that I think Memphiss is kind of tactically and physically versatile enough where he can lend some rest to these guys, where come late season, they're not going to be physically taxed and gassed.
Yeah, I mean, we're positionally, I worry about certain things in that free role defensively, as I said, but the inverse of that is that Memphiss can play in both a front two in a 3-5-2, and he can play out on the left in a 4-3-3. And that versatility means that by and large, he might be in every starting 11 in one of those two positions, regardless of where that is. And I also want to remind, as we're breaking this down, we're talking about, as we always do, as pundits do, as podcasts do, whatever, we're talking about it's the Champions League final, what's your starting 11. But by that point, I think a lot has been figured out as to who fits in what roles and who fits in what positions. Because truthfully, there's 51 matches this season. Messi starts all of them, and then you need to fill in the other 2 forward spots, if you will. Or, as I said, because I don't see the 3-5-2 with so many different forward options. Kayato's the one player we didn't even mention. I want to throw him in there at the end, but he'll obviously be a substitute and potentially start some Copa del Rey matches. So we're not overdoing that too much. But yes, Memphiss also, his ability to play up through the middle. When we saw Dembele last season playing that false 9 role, where imagine now Memphiss in that false 9 role, position he's played both for the Netherlands and for Lyon occasionally last year when he was coming back from injury, and he can do that job too. So just the versatility is something that both scares me defensively, but I think is also going to be useful over the course of a season.